Well, guess what we have going on? We have a swarm of bees that have kind of landed in my cherry tree, and what I've done is taken an old drawn-out brood frame of old brood wax that's basically empty and from a deep, and attached it to the cherry tree, which is in my backyard behind these 3 new hives here. I'll show you the hive that they cast from, because I saw it as it happened about 15 minutes ago. They came out of this cypress hive here. All is calm and quiet except for the swarm, and there's the 3 new hives. I'm going to go back over here to the cherry tree and give you a kind of a close-up. That's what it looks like, see? And if we go behind the frame here, there's kind of you put them on the ground, trying to get them to come back up on this frame, so then I can put them in this little nook over here, cardboard nook. So now, I'm going to look down here and see if I can find the queen, because if I can find the queen, it'll make my job a lot easier. I think, judging from what I see, the queen's probably still on the tree. But I'm still going to look for her. Okay, so here's what we have now. As you can see, we don't have hardly any bees kind of flying around in the air. The air was thick. What I did is I went into the garage and got a cardboard nook, which you see sitting on top of this step ladder, and I had wired a piece of, not a piece, but a frame of empty brood wax from a deep super. I had wired it to where the cluster was, and they covered that wax frame completely in about 3 minutes. And then I shook them into the box here, put the cover back on, put the frame back up, and did that twice already. And then finally put it up the 3rd time, and they covered that. And I just set it in the nook. So now we have 1 frame with the equivalent of about 3 totally covered frames of bees in that cardboard box. And there is a remnant, as you can see here, pretty good number of, probably about another 1.5 pounds, maybe 2 if you go up. And I opened up the front of this hive here, the nook, which is, I'll point to it, right there. And just kind of looking at the behavior of the bees to see if they're basically pouring out of this entrance, or whether they're actually scenting and staying put. And that appears to be what they're doing. They're not leaving the box. Bees have a hard time leaving a comb of brood foundation that's drawn out, even in the absence of young. And so they think, oh, this will probably be a pretty good size home. In doing a little research, you find out that the optimum size container for a swarm generally, unless it's a very huge swarm, is probably about the size of about a 5-gallon bucket, or maybe slightly larger. And this particular nook, of course, holds 5 frames of, I could probably squeeze 6 frames in, of honeybees. This is my cherry tree that they're in. I have another one over here beside it. This one here is a red cherry. This is a yellow with a red blush, and I've been eating off of this tree now for about a week and a half. and this is its third year. I got these cherry trees from an Amish gentleman up in New York who used to be in Ohio, and he really produces some phenomenal trees, fruit trees and other trees that he sells, plus grapevines and assorted other fruits. And I don't know how this guy does it, but boy, when he sends you a fruit tree for like 20 or 25 bucks, I want to tell you, he sends a great product. And I've been buying fruit trees, oh gosh, for 50 years, okay? I'm 70, so that gives you an idea. I started gardening well before 20, so probably more than 50 years. And I don't think anybody has ever come close to what he produces. And that's quite a statement when you think about it. I've bought Stark trees, I bought trees from Washington State. I'm in Indianapolis, so that gives you an idea. The length at which I go sometimes to find a tree that I want. And this guy knows his stuff. Besides, he's an avid grafter and pruner and all that sort of stuff, so he has all kinds of information he can help you with. Now these bees are actually looks like they might be going into this nook now. So I'm going to just leave them alone and see what happens. So here we are. I'm going to part this branch and let you look at this cluster. There's not as many bees as there seems to be because there's quite a few leaves here. I don't have any gloves on or anything, and I really just put my bee suit on to keep from getting stung in the head. I don't like getting stung up there, even though I've been at it for quite a while with this business. Technically, you could probably just take your gear off because they have one purpose only, and that is to find a home, and they don't pretty much care what you do unless you get too aggressive. Like I saw once at a Cincinnati ball game on TV where the big swarm came over into the ballpark while it was on national TV, and some idiots they landed on a big camera, an NBC camera, I think it was NBC, maybe CBS, but it was one of their big cameras, and some idiot got out a fire extinguisher and started blasting away. And these things were all the way out to the outfield and all up in the audience, and and it was really making a mess. Finally, they got smart and asked for some beekeepers out of the audience, and these guys came down, and one in particular took the bees and put them in basically hived them in a cardboard box that somebody supplied, and that solved the problem. But it's all about education and whether you know what the devil you're doing, and obviously when the right person got there, we didn't have a problem. But this is really kind of cool. I was hoping that maybe I would catch this swarm. I was pretty sure this particular hive was getting ready to swarm. I have a clear plastic device on top that allows me to take the lid off and look right down into the hive and watch the activity. And this hive, even though it had a super, which they've just about finished filling, and drawn out in about 11 days, I'd say it'll be capped at another 3 or 4. They evidently needed another super sooner, but I think the cells were already there, and the momentum and the tempo of the hive was such that even if you went in and took those supersedure cells or swarm cells out, I should say swarm cells because it wasn't a supersedure situation, that it wouldn't have mattered anyways, because once they get it in their blood to do this, they're going to do it. The other issue is we've had a lot of rain here, not a whole lot of days of sunshine, so everything is kind of kept the bees in the home, congested, not a lot of flight time. Another reason for swarms to issue, because I didn't get too many swarms. I didn't get any in March. May have had some in April, but my out yards don't allow me to keep by closely, so if they did, I wouldn't know it. And this one is in my backyard, and so when I came out on the back deck to do something, I saw these bees flying around, and if you ever see a swarm as it issues, you'll know. You won't even have to ask what's going on. Just grab yourself a box, a bucket. You don't need a smoker, you don't need a hive tool, you need whatever makes you feel safe as far as a veil. You don't even need gloves, but you will need, what's really handy is to have a frame of at least drawn out wax that used to be part of a brood chamber. And if you have a hive handy, you can dip into it and get a frame that has brood on it that's actually live. Shake the bees off and throw it up there where the swarm is, if you can reach it. That's the other fortunate thing here, is that this swarm is really close to the ground, within reach, which is unusual. I'm gonna wait a while and then finish up on this just after I decide whether they're gonna go in the box or not completely. I'll see you in a bit. Now what I've done is if you can look up here at this nook, is I've cocked the cover up such that I pulled it back a little at the top front, so the bees can actually enter through the whole top front of the hive, as well as the hole in the bottom, and they have plugged everything up as far as entry. They are actually transferring from the tree and going into the hive. So I think we actually already have the queen in there, because they're actually moving into the box of their own accord. And I think the reason that some of them persist in staying on the tree branch for a while is that the queen's pheromone is pretty potent when she's a newly emerging queen, and what happens is that scent remains on the tree, and even after these bees are in the box, there'll be other bees come by and kind of take a sniff, or you'll still have a few bees that linger there even a day after sometimes. It's kind of interesting. It must be a really potent chemical. Probably if we got close enough, we could smell it, because you can smell the bee scent that they give off for bringing other bees to their own location, their own hive, when they're scenting. So you can smell those, believe it or not. I've done it, and I've also opened up a hive and squashed a bee, and of course it exudes another pheromone that is a danger one, that tells the guard bees in the hive to come after you, and you can also smell that. So I'm sure that given the opportunity and the right circumstances, you could probably actually smell the pheromone of the queen. But I think this looks promising, that we're going to have captured this probably, I'm going to guess, somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 pounds of bees. I've already lifted this little nook, and it's surprisingly heavy. So I feel pretty good right now that we're going to do okay on this. Right now I'm going to just take shut my camera off and come back later in about maybe half an hour to an hour and see what it looks like. I'll see you in a bit. So it's about an hour later, and as you can see, there's just a few bees running around. And let's take a look up here where we saw them before, and then you could actually see the entrance. There are no more bees except a very few at the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this box back a little. Move the box back a little so it's actually away from the tree. And we're going to let those... What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this lid back so that it will drop over the box.
They can't get in.
They have an opening, honey. My wife is here telling me that they can't get in if I close the top, but she forgot there is an opening in the bottom.
Well, you did have it taped.
I took the tape off.
Oh.
Okay, so now we still have a little tiny cluster of leaves right there. And what we're going to do is see if we can get them to recluster over here. Actually, we're going to take this down and set it on the ground. So, I'm taking this step ladder away. We're going to go back and look at that tree right up here. There they are. They're just kind of all flying around. I think that's where the residual set was on the queen. And here we are at the front of the hive, which I have standing temporarily on the top of my tomato cage. They kind of gathered on the front lid because I had that open originally so they could get in there quicker. It might be kind of interesting just to open this up and take a look inside and see what you think. There's what it looks like inside. Just a mass of bees. So, now, there you go. Now I moved them closer to the tree so they can orient to the swarm and the tree like this, you know. Get them all flying so they'll come down to the hive. And you can see my cherries up there. Don't want to ruin them. A few back hiding under here with a nice pink blush, and I got bees flying in my mouth, and trying to anyways. So now we got about, oh, I'm going to say 100 bees maybe. So, I'm going to leave them here probably till they all come in at night, tonight. Then I'm going to put them somewhere else. Because there's an old saying, you either move bees a few inches or a few miles. You never move them more than that, because when you're in your bee yard, because they might orient back to the original hive on drift or whatever, or just because that's where they came from. So I'm going to probably move this to an out yard in a single box with a bottom board, etc., for the sole purpose of having another hive. So now instead of 13 I have 14 hives, and hopefully we won't have too many more swarms, because it really does deplete your working capacity in a hive, and sometimes disrupts progress, so to speak, since you do lose some bees, at least field bees. So we'll come back sometime this evening and see what it looks like. My guess is they'll probably all be in the box, and if not, we'll worry about the few, or not worry about them, as depends on how many they are. And move it to an out yard tomorrow, probably in another box. Problem with cardboard boxes, they're wax lined and they have a tendency to be very hot, and you get a bunch of bees in there with not enough ventilation, and it gets kind of damp. And there's one thing that's not good for bees, and that is humidity. And that causes some not so nice things for bees. So we'll come back later tonight or this evening when it starts to get dark. I'll get you later. Well, you can see by the branches now that there's no more bees basically up there, and they've kind of all transferred themselves down to the front of this nook, which is sitting on top of my tomato cage. What I did was I went inside and got another super deep, I should call a brood chamber. It's what I use them for anymore, because I'm too old to comfortably lift a 60+ woodware, weight probably 80-pound box with bees / or honey, and tote it around comfortably. So I've moved all my hives to one deep and one medium for the brood chamber, and then the rest of the supers on top that collect either comb honey or / extracted honey are in shallows and then mediums, in that order. So what I've done is, it's kind of like hiving a new package of bees. Came out of my hive over in the corner that I showed you earlier. I've taken 4 frames out, you see back there, and I've got an inner cover ready to go. I've got the entrance reduced with a little bit of grass in it. I think you can see that. And I'm going to put my veil on because they might be a little bit testier now that they've been out here for 2 or 3 hours, and they're really ready, since they're full of honey, to start producing some comb and that sort of thing. So I'm going to hide these now in this box, because this little nook here, wax coated cardboard, does not have enough ventilation. I've used them before, and you actually get condensation on the inside, which is not a good thing. So I'm going to do that, and when I get done I'll take a final picture, and that'll be it for this video. Okay, so here's the end result. About 15 minutes later, I got a new bottom board stapled onto a deep brood chamber, and an inner cover and then an outer cover with an aluminum top. I sometimes keep notes on my tops as I work in the yard, so that I know what what's going on at the moment, and then I cross them off as I go. This was one of those hives that was hive tops that was that way. This is the super that the nook rather that was on the top of the tomato trellis, and there's still an empty frame which I left in here for them to gather on. That's the remainder that have gone back up into the tree, but they're coming also back to this, so when they collect on that frame, I'll just put them back in here, or put them put the box at the base and let them migrate up to this wooden hive, single deep. So by tomorrow they'll all be settled in, I'm sure, maybe even by this evening. So that was a successful hiving of a swarm, and it went very well. For the most part, I really didn't do much other than supply a container and some brood foundation drawn out, honeycomb, kind of nice and brown and used for them to latch onto, and then I transferred it to first the nook and then finally to the wooden box. So just my way of handling it at this particular moment. I've done it different ways in the past, and probably do it yet another way in the future, but that's one way to do it. Okay, kind of fun. Now we'll see if we can upload this to YouTube. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put this hive here on this sheet, and once I get this frame loaded with a fair amount of bees, I'll shake it hopefully, or at least try to get most of them into the box. And once the queen's in there, we'll be fine. So we're going to give it a go. I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so I shook most of them off, and about a third of them probably fell into the box that you now see the thin plywood cover on. It's slightly ajar. Now it's interesting, the bees that are in there that were on the frame plus the ones I shook are staying put. I have the entrance below reduced with just a small opening about the width of the palm of your hand, and they're not leaving, so they're scenting, which is a kind of an indication that I either have the queen, or, and that would be the most logical assumption, but I've been wrong in the past, or they like where they're at and they're trying to basically say, hey guys, or I should say gals, since they're all for the most part women, we have a better home down here than where you are up here in this mess in the grapevine. And unfortunately they're on a 2x4 which does not shake. and a cross brace, as you see here. That's a cross brace. A few of them are on the basically intertwined on some of the grapevines, and I just put a glove on and just kind of ease them off the 2x4, and that seems to work fairly well, but just gives you an idea what the swarm looks like. I guess probably another 4-pounder, maybe 5-pounder. It's about bigger than the last one. So we got over, that's 4,500 bees per pound, so do the math. 4 5s are 20, plus you have 5 times 5, that's 25, so you got 22,500 bees roughly. So that's a nice start on another hive. I was going to put some supers on these things here, but I guess we're going to find out which one it came from when I get in these 3 later today, or even tomorrow. You can hear the mower. That's my wife cutting the grass. She's the one that actually came back here for whatever and saw the bees and said, I think we got another swarm, and sure enough, they'd actually already settled. She didn't see that they'd settled underneath here in the grape arbor. This is a nice arbor that's got at least 5 major vines to it. It just did its 3rd year, and this will be its 1st year of production. And it's got some, this is June, and you can see the grapes hanging here. So these hives here were put in about 3 weeks ago. These 2 by myself from a new package. And this one I gifted my wife, since she's been helping me in the apiaries, with a garden hive, because she wanted it. And I said, well, that's a great start. So she has her own hive now that she can take care of, and more so since it's hers. And then this was the one in the back that swarmed about 6-7 days ago. And it's got all of its frames totally full of nectar / honey that's in the process. There are some very small areas that have been cleared away for the queen, but I don't think she has started laying yet, last I checked, which was yesterday. So I expect that to happen in another day or 2, and if not, I've got a couple of queens coming just in case. And I get mine from H&R Apiaries in Georgia, and those people do an excellent job. They are very good on the phone, they're very good on their follow-through, and I've had nothing but good luck with their product. Good queens and good bees, and very, very passive bees, I might add. So if you're looking for somebody to buy from, and their prices are even better than most, so give them a shot. H&R Apiaries in Georgia. I'm not sure what the little town is, but if somebody mentioned it, I'd probably know it. But there's a gal there on the phone that I usually get. Her name is Ruby. She's a very nice lady. I'm going to continue this later when we have more to talk about. So, Here we are about 45 minutes later. I'll take you back under. Here's the hive, stapled bottom board. This is one of your hot weather covers, or desert tops, as they call them. Don't have an inner cover. And to show you, I got to turn around backwards, pointing the other way. And there's your bees, and I'll show you where they were right up here. Kind of hard to see in the dark, but they're all gone. There's not even a little cluster. So they're all in the hive. So that makes 2. And I just checked these 3 hives here, and I didn't really see any difference in population, but I went back to the original hive that had swarmed like 6-7 days ago, which you see back there by the tomatoes. And I have a view top inside the cover that I can take the outside cover off and look straight down into the hive, and it's depopulated. So I think it had repopulated, and that super was covered and almost full. So now I think they cast another swarm with a queen that came out or emerged a little bit later. And so 2 swarms for 1 out of 1 hive, and both captured in my own yard, which saves money. So there you go. Turn around, let you see it from the front. I'll go around the grapes here, and you can look through the grapes and see them. And here's the one I was referring to, that actually, I'll walk around the cherry tree here, and there's the other one right between the 2 tomato cages. And that hive has filled out everything in that deep, and I just put that shallow on top. So I expect they'll turn that into partial brood chamber, which is the way I want it, at 1 deep and 1 medium. And then I'll put the boxes for supers on this one, probably tail end of June or beginning of July. I should get a box or 2 of honey off of it. So there you go, 1, and there's the other one, and there's the 3 that we had before. This will be an addendum, probably part 3, to my backyard swarm under G. Wooster, G-W-O-O-S-T-E-R. So if you want to look it up on YouTube, you can. Talk at you later.